Welcome back to English Unfiltered, the podcast where we explore real conversations in English. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. And today we're diving into that incredibly frustrating phenomenon where your English is technically grammatically correct, but it still sounds a little off.
Right, like it just feels weird to native speakers. And I think so many language learners experience this without even realizing it.
Oh, absolutely. You spend years studying and then you get that blank stare.
Exactly. So our mission for today's deep dives is to uncover exactly why perfect grammar doesn't always equal natural sounding English.
And more importantly, how you can actually fix it.
Yeah, because we have to start by dismantling, like the biggest myth out there for language learners.
Which is that grammar rules are the ultimate finish line, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We treat language like it's a math problem.
Right. Like if you plug in the correct subject, add the right auxiliary verb, and conjugate everything perfectly, you get the correct answer.
Right. But language isn't an equation.
No, not at all.
A sentence can be 100% grammatically approved by like Cambridge or Oxford, but it can still feel completely jarring to a native speaker.
Because it completely ignores how things are normally said. It ignores the unwritten social conventions.
Yeah, let me give you an analogy. Imagine you get invited to a super casual beach party.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
There's a bonfire. People are eating hot dogs, sitting in the sand.
Yeah.
And you show up wearing a fully tailored, incredibly expensive tuxedo.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you'd stand out immediately.
Right. Technically, the tuxedo is flawless. The stitching is perfect. The measurements are exact. It is a correct outfit.
But it's totally wrong for the context.
Exactly. Speaking a highly structured, textbook perfect English in a casual coffee shop is basically the linguistic equivalent of wearing a tuxedo to a beach bonfire.
I love that. You are completely overdressed for the context.
And that contextual mismatch, that's what triggers that subtle alarm bell in a native speaker's brain.
Because you aren't doing anything technically wrong, you're just violating the expected vibe of the environment.
So if you're listening right now and you've ever felt like your English is a bit rigid, the goal needs to shift.
Yeah, you have to stop trying to be more correct and start aiming to be more typical.
More typical. I mean, that is a massive paradigm shift.
It really is.
But if standard grammar rules aren't the root of natural speech, what is actually causing us to reach for that tuxedo in the first place?
Well, the first major culprit happens completely invisibly in our brains. It's the native language blueprint.
Right, also known as L1 interference.
Exactly. Your brain already has this fully optimized high-speed neural highway for your native language.
Because you've been using it your whole life.
Right. It knows exactly how to frame reality, how to build clauses, all of that.
So when you learn English, your brain tries to save energy.
Yeah, it takes the structural blueprint of your native language and just, swaps out the vocabulary for English words.
It's essentially running a real-time, word-for-word translation in the background.
Exactly. But the problem is that different languages don't just use different words, they use entirely different architectural logic.
They describe reality differently.
Yeah, let's look at the classic example of age.
Oh, this is a great one.
In a lot of Romance languages like Spanish, French, Italian, when you state your age, you use the verb for possession.
Right. You say something that literally translates to, I have 30 years.
Exactly. You possess the years. But in English, if you say that, it instantly marks you as a non-native speaker.
Because an English speaker says, I am 30, we use the verb to be.
Right.
Okay, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Because from a logical standpoint, having years makes infinitely more sense than being a number.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Think about it. You've lived those years. You've collected them as experiences. They belong to you.
Yeah, it's a very rational way to frame it.
So why in the world is English so strangely obsessed with being a number? I mean, I am a human being. I am not the numerical value of 30.
It does feel mathematically reductive, doesn't it?
Totally. Saying I am 30 is basically illogical.
It is. But this brings us to a foundational truth about how language works. Language isn't always logical.
Right.
It relies on historical consensus. At some point, speakers of Germanic languages just unconsciously agreed to view age as a state of being.
Like being tall or being happy.
Exactly, rather than an accumulated possession. And when you translate directly from your native language, you're dragging your culture's philosophical agreements into English.
And English operates on a completely different set of agreements.
Right. And that clash of underlying logic is exactly what creates that weird feeling.
And we see this clash everywhere. not just with age.
Oh, definitely.
Like, think about spatial prepositions. They are notoriously a nightmare for language learners because they completely defy logic.
They really do.
In English, we say we are on a bus, on a train, and on a plane, but we are in a car and in a taxi.
Which, if you're not a native speaker, sounds like absolute madness.
Right. Because physically, you are inside the bus, just like you are inside the car. So why use on?
Well, there's actually an unwritten rule here, right?
Yeah, it's about platforms versus containers.
Oh, right.
If a vehicle has a flat deck that you can stand up and walk across, like a bus or a train or a plane English, treats it as a platform. So you are on it.
That is so interesting.
But if you have to sit down immediately and you can't walk around like a car or a helicopter, it's a container. So you are in it.
See, that conceptual framework is totally invisible if you're just relying on direct translation.
Exactly. A textbook just gives you a list to memorize. It doesn't teach you the hidden logic.
Right. So direct translation keeps us trapped in our native language's logic. But there's another major hurdle, even if you get the logic right.
Yeah, even when you successfully adopt the English mindset and correctly say, I am 30 and I'm on a bus, learners fall into another trap.
The overcomplication habit?
Yes. The insistence on building massive, completely perfect sentences.
And this goes right back to that textbook conditioning we talked about.
Right, because in a classroom, every question has to be answered with a full sentence to prove, the grammar.
Like, if a teacher asks, do you like apples? The expected answer is, yes, I like apples.
But in the real world, a native speaker just says, yeah.
Exactly. Native speakers operate on linguistic economy. They ruthlessly simplify what they say.
It's almost like language learners are getting paid by the word, but native speakers are being charged by the word.
That is a perfect way to put it.
Think about how we make requests. Let's say you want to ask a coworker if they have time to meet tomorrow.
Okay.
A textbook-trained learner will construct this heavily fortified masterpiece. They'll say, I would like to know if you might be available to meet tomorrow.
I mean, the grammar there is impeccable.
It really is beautiful.
It uses modal verbs correctly, the infinitive is perfect, the politeness markers are all there.
But if a coworker actually said that to me while we were grabbing coffee in the break room, I would feel incredibly awkward.
It sounds like they're reading a formal HR email out loud.
Exactly. Contrast that with what a native speaker would actually say in that exact same situation. Are you free tomorrow?
4 words.
4 words. And the literal meaning is identical.
But the feeling is entirely different. And there's actually a reason for that tied to how politeness works in English.
Right. I wanted to ask you about this. Do native speakers simplify just because we're lazy? Or does stripping away all those formal words actually serve a social purpose?
It definitely serves a social purpose. It's all about social distance.
Okay, break that down for me.
So there's this concept of negative face and positive face in linguistics. Negative face is our desire not to be imposed upon.
So that's when we use formal, indirect language.
Exactly. We use it with strangers or superiors to create a respectful buffer, a wall of distance.
Got it. And positive face.
Positive face is our desire to be connected, liked, and treated as an insider. So we use casual, direct, simplified language to build that positive face.
Oh, wow. That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So natural conversational English is heavily focused on positive face.
Yes. It values casual efficiency because that signals intimacy.
Right. When you use that long, highly structured sentence with a coworker, you are unintentionally building a wall of formality.
You are signaling social distance. You're putting the tuxedo back on in the break room.
And the other person, who is mentally in sweatpants, feels this sudden disconnect.
Exactly. But when you use the shortened version, are you free tomorrow? You're signaling closeness.
You're implicitly telling them we're comfortable enough with each other that we don't need all these defensive formal words.
And that's the tragic irony of overstudying grammar.
Yeah, the learner thinks they're being super respectful, but the native speaker interprets it as cold or robotic.
Which is why the conversation feels weird.
Okay, so we know why we sound unnatural. We've got the cognitive trap of native language translation, and we have this habit of overcomplicating to be polite.
Right.
So how do we actually fix this? Because clearly studying more grammar books is just making the problem worse.
It really is. The solution is actually a shift from active construction to passive observation.
Passive observation.
Yeah, specifically through something called lexical chunking.
Okay, what exactly is a lexical chunk? How does that help us bypass the grammar trap?
Well, when a learner tries to speak, they usually start with a blank slate. They pull a subject, find a verb, conjugate it, and build the sentence block by block.
Right, in real time. Which takes a lot of mental energy.
A massive amount, and that causes hesitation and leads to those awkward, overly formal sentences.
But native speakers don't do that.
No, our brains store and retrieve language in pre-assembled blocks. We call them chunks.
So instead of processing 4 separate words, the brain just treats a whole phrase as a single unit of meaning.
Exactly. Think about the phrase, how's it going?
Okay.
We don't process that as an interrogative pronoun, a contracted verb, a pronoun, and a present participle.
Right, we just hear, how's it going?
Exactly. To a native speaker, it's one single mental symbol. It's a prepackaged chunk. You don't have to think about the grammar inside of it. You just deploy the whole block at once.
This is so freeing. I mean, you can stop trying to be an architect, building a house brick by brick every time you open your mouth.
Yes. You just become a collector of prefabricated rooms.
You listen to how native speakers actually talk, you grab the chunks they use, and you plug them into your own conversations.
And the only way to build that library of chunks is by paying close attention. You have to stop listening just for the meaning of what people say and start noticing the mechanism of how they say it.
Like when someone agrees with you in a meeting, do they say, I agree with your statement completely?
Probably not. They probably just say, for sure.
Right. Or if they want to change the subject, they don't say, let us now discuss a different topic. They just say, moving on.
Exactly. It turns language learning into an observation game.
You're going undercover. You're listening for the shortcuts, the reductions, and the specific chunks people rely on.
And this is exactly how children acquire their native language, right? They don't study verb conjugations.
No, they just mimic the adults around them.
Right. They observe, they mimic the chunks they hear over and over, and eventually they just intuit the underlying patterns.
Which takes an enormous amount of pressure off the listener.
It really does. You don't have to be a flawless walk-in dictionary.
In fact, striving for that robotic perfection is exactly what's holding you back. You just need to tune your ear to the rhythm of the language in the wild.
It's less like analyzing complex sheet music and more like tapping your foot to a beat, and then you can just naturally hum along.
I love that. And that shift from prescriptive perfection to descriptive reality is what softens your speech.
It makes you so much faster because you're using chunks instead of doing live grammar calculations.
And it makes you sound infinitely more authentic. You finally get to trade the tuxedo for a t-shirt.
Which is so much more comfortable anyway.
Definitely. Okay, let's briefly recap all of this because this completely changes the roadmap for language learners.
Yeah, let's pull it all together.
First, we have to let go of the need for perfect full sentences. Standardized grammar is for tests, not for real human connection.
Second, watch out for direct translations. You have to be aware of your native language's invisible logic.
Because English has its own illogical agreements, like standing on a bus but sitting in a car.
Third, embrace linguistic economy. Stop overcomplicating things just to be polite, because that actually creates social distance.
Use short, casual structures to signal warmth and closeness. And finally, start collecting and using those lexical chunks instead of building sentences word by word.
It really all comes down to observing the typical way people phrase things.
Before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought.
Oh, I'm ready.
I want you to think deeply about your own native language, the one you've spoken effortlessly your entire life. Do you speak it with absolute, flawless, textbook perfect grammar in every single interaction?
Definitely not.
Right. Do you use fully complete sentences when talking to your best friend? Or do you rely on slang, half-finished thoughts, weird idioms, and illogical shortcuts?
I mean, we break the rules of our own native languages constantly.
Exactly. So why should your expectations for speaking English be any different?
That is such a good point.
Here is your challenge for today. I want you to take off the pressure of being perfect. Eavesdrop on a conversation today.
Politely, of course.
Right. Politely eavesdrop. It could be two people talking on the subway, or characters in a movie, or just a podcast interview.
And just listen for the chunks.
Yes. Try to spot just one English phrase that is technically imperfect, short, or grammatically incomplete, but sounds completely natural.
Notice it, write it down, and then try to use it yourself this week.
That wraps up our deep dive into the real mechanics of natural-sounding English. Thank you so much for joining us today.
We hope this helps you leave the linguistic tuxedo in the closet and embrace the weirdness of real conversation.
We'll see you back here for the next episode of English Unfiltered.